Welcome to a new time. Welcome to a new era.
This ain't WCW. This ain't Monday Night Raw. This ain't SmackDown. This ain't even WWE. Feel the wrath of the Pythons. You shall feel the wrath of Hulkamania. This is where the power lies.
And that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family.
I got a 66 and 2/3 chance of winning because Kurt Angle knows he can't beat me and he's not even going to try.
It's time to step into the squared circle and get it done.
Welcome back to the Legends and Champions podcast. Wow, that sounded really bad because I've gone very croaky. Excuse me. Andy Evans here, of course, joined as always by my man to the right. Well, you don't know that because you can't see the screen that I can see because he sat to my right because we're recording this on video, but we don't make any difference. We don't release it on video because we're not a video cast anymore. We're an audio cast, and actually you wouldn't want to see us at this sort of time in the morning because it's 8:30. It's very early, and I've only had one coffee, and I'm still working through it in my old TSC mug. Aha, there we go. Need to get a new Legends mug, mate. Ooh, maybe I'm going to make a Legends. Do you want a Legends mug?
Merch ideas. Love it.
Shall we make a Legends mug? Just for us. It'll be a limited edition.
Yeah.
Right, of five. Yep. 5 mugs, right? One for you, one for me, one for Mitch, one for Dimitri, and one for Joe Aguinaldo. Oh, and one for Mike. 6. Be a limited edition of 6. I actually forgot the boss. Not good to forget the boss.
How can you do such a thing? How can you forget Mike El Capitano?
Well, I'm still waiting for the t-shirt, mate. So until, no t-shirt, no t-shirt, no muggy. No Tishi, no muggy.
No Tishi, no muggy. Okay.
We'll do a limited edition of 6 mugs, right? And maybe what I'll do is kind of like, maybe I'll make it blue and black with like an NWO style look on it, or red and black with like an NWO style look on it with the LAC logo, and then Wolfpack, and then a chair shot with you chair shotting Mitch and Dimitri. And can't
it just be me chair shotting you? Or can we actually or can we not, instead of staying in the chair shot, we just need like a silhouette of me, because I can't get my leg up that high because I'm getting old and
TMI.
Age. TMI. But me super kicking you.
Let's see. No. No. How about, because, technically it's got my name on the show and it doesn't have yours, I'm going to keep
Here we go again.
Until I take it off, which I'm not going to do for a very long time. How about I just like do a low blow, like the heel turn, and just do the low blow, and then we just hear like, ah! And then Mike could kind of pop his head. It could be an animated mug where we, like one of those heat mugs. Remember back in the day when you used to have those heat mugs and you put the hot water in and the picture changed? Yeah. Maybe we do this. We do the standard mug, and then we put the water in and it changes. And there's like Mike disqualifying me for doing a low blow. I've had no sleep.
Yeah, you can tell, can't you? Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are listening to us in the world of podcast land. There's my Terry Wogan impression again. What are we doing this week? 'Cause I've forgotten.
Today, we are breaking down, not match by match, but basically we are breaking down all about WCW Bash at the Beach 1996. Let's face it, let's not beat around the bush. It's pretty much only really known for one thing, and that is
John Tenta versus Big Bubba.
No, I was going to say a certain Hulk Hogan turning heel, doing the unthinkable, what people thought was the unthinkable, and the birth of the new world order.
Well, we're going to get to that in just a second. But before we do that, Stefan, if you would like to get in contact with all of us here at Celebrate Wrestling, how would one go about doing that?
Well, Mr. Evans, one could go over to Facebook and search for Celebrate Wrestling. And you can click to join there, answer a few questions because Meta and Zuckerberg say you have to. And El Capitan, Mike McGuire, will authorize you to join, where you can get involved with like-minded people from across the world, as well as all of us here at Celebrate Wrestling, and you can give us your thoughts. We can talk anything wrestling. Give us your opinions on the shows. Give us some ideas of what maybe you'd like us to cover here on LAC. And say no jerk zone. So forget all dramas, because it's a no drama zone. It's a no jerk zone. It's very friendly and it's very interactive. So head over there. And also, if you would like to support Celebrate Wrestling, you can also put an order in and you can get a Celebrate Wrestling t-shirt. You could get your GWO Greek World Order alternate commentary table t-shirts. I have one of each. I absolutely love them. Mike did a great job getting those done. We still need a LAC t-shirt. We will get them sorted at some point down the line. So yeah, get involved.
That's not a hint, Mike. If you're listening to this, that's 2 weeks now on the trot. Well, actually 3 weeks, because I said that in the XWS show. So, it's not like we're trying to drop a hint here, Mike. Who's been notable in the Hope Chat of not mentioning the fact that we've been mentioning it. But I once said to myself, Self, how do I listen to all the great audio of Celebrate Wrestling? And I went, Self, this is what I do. I subscribe on podcast, whether that's Spotify, iHeart, Apple, or Podbean, or any other podcast. I was going to say Spotify provider then. Any other podcast provider. And I search for the word Celebrate Wrestling. And then what I do is I click on subscribe or I click on follow. One of those two. And then I listen to all of the shows of the Celebrate Wrestling Network as they drop. So on a Saturday, you will be hearing Mitch and Dimitri, the Greek World Order with the alternate commentary table. On a Sunday, you will hear the flagship show. Oh, Daddy-O, Mike Maguire, normally with Mr. Meltzer and Mr. Aguinaldo from Maguire on Wrestling. And then every Wednesday, it's the creme de la creme of retro wrestling goodness, as I'm back each and every week with legends and champions. Oh, and Stefan joins me.
I just throw me in just as a little bit extra. I'm that spicy little side piece that that when you order a meal in a restaurant and everything, when they say, "Oh, can I get you any extras?" You go, "Yeah." I want something that brings the flavour, something little touch of spicy.
Can I just say that when we did TSC, right? You did a few shows on your own. You did a few solo shows. I have 100% track record on this show. I haven't missed one because I can time when I'm going to record them, right? But you weren't here for a couple of weeks. I know you were ill, but it's still 100% to 95%.
I need my recovery. I get ill now. I've got to get myself recovered. I've got to bring it when I come on air. It's got to be done.
All right, Rock, just bring it. Right, shall we do this?
Let's do it.
WCW Bash at the Beach was held on July the 7th, 1996. And it really, as Stefan kind of alluded to earlier on, it kind of transcended this PLE, the normal monthly $49.99 PLE model that was out for the WWE and WCW. Because this one, without a shadow of a doubt, reshaped the landscape of professional wrestling. It had a diverse card, but it was this heel turn of Hulk Hogan, the creation of the New World Order, this masterstroke that you actually have to give Eric Bischoff credit for pulling the trigger on it, that changed what we know. It almost, ladies and gentlemen, put the World Wrestling Federation out of business. It almost made WCW the only running promotion. Now you imagine, just do a what if, right? Over the last couple of months, we've talked about the XWF. We've talked about TNA Unbreakable. We talked about the heroes of wrestling. We've talked about NXT TakeOver. We've talked about legends of wrestling, right? Could you imagine a world where WCW, thanks to Bash at the Beach and the 83 weeks that they were kicking the ass of the WWF, beat them? Could you imagine flipping the tables to 2001 in Grand Rapids, Michigan, for example, with Eric Bischoff coming onto the set of WCW Nitro and saying, I hold the competition in my hands. Could you imagine what that landscape would look like right now?
No, I can't. And I think that's, that there is a reason for it. And, so much time has passed. I mean, I just feel, that, it is a really difficult. It's one that has to be stuck because I tried to think of that alternative and I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I mean, I don't know if over time they would have been able to grow as the main company if WWE had been put out of business. I don't know if the model there, that was one of the things with WCW, and I think Eric Bischoff touched on it as well over the years, where he said, it got to a point with WCW where, like, kind of once Turner kind of faded away from it all, the executives at like the companies at the stations and that started to show less interest in the product. Hence, one of the reasons why there were all these changes backstage, people getting involved. Then there was too many people doing too many things, and that's why WCW became a complete and utter mess. And that's why a lot of the former WCW talent have said, those last sort of couple of years or few years that WCW was still going in the lead up to 2001, where they just said it just become, a dumpster fire of a place to be. People didn't enjoy going to work. People who shouldn't have had complete creative control over their careers, their characters, and they just said when you've got too many people having too much power over what they do individually, as well as them not really being backed like they used to be under Turner. It's an untenable place. It was just set up to be a downfall. You can't run things like that. So I think the best way for me to look at it, and I think the best question would be, if WCW had put WWE out of business, would WCW have gone on to this day to be the juggernaut that WWE is of this day? And I very much doubt that it would have been run correctly enough for it to be as big. I mean, there may still not have been a WCW to this day. AEW might have be here. But then again, saying that, AEW may not have been born because AEW was born to be that alternative to WWE that WCW was. Even though AEW has similarities to WWE, it is different, isn't it?
But we have that, though. The alternative was TNA.
Yeah.
TNA was always developed. I mean, I love TNA. TNA have made some mistakes over the years. In 20 years, they've made some mistakes, as all companies have. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, where you kind of went, would WCW be the juggernaut that the World Wrestling Federation was? And I don't think it would have done for one reason: Time Warner Discovery.
Yeah.
So, Time Warner Discovery, which is who bought, AOL Time Warner back in the 90s, like you said, didn't want the product. They didn't want the WCW. But it's interesting, though, to sit back and think about, imagine if, and I often do this, I think this is the good thing about some of these wrestling simulator games, like the Championship Manager ones, where you can rebook it. And you sit there and go, well, actually, what would have happened if Nitro had beat Raw and WCW had come out on top? And, would Raw still be Raw, or would it become WCW Nitro? Would SmackDown become Thunder? What would have happened to the tape library? Would they have done the WCW network? Would they have done this? Would they have done that? It's interesting because the landscape would have completely changed because they wouldn't have done the network.
No,
it would have been on an OTT streaming platform like AEW is, like HBO Max, or like the WWE have done with Netflix, or it could have gone to Prime or something like that. But it's just an interesting. And then my other thing about that is, where would Hogan have sat in this? Now, because you've also got to think Hogan, as with any company he's been involved in, and we're going to talk more about the background, setting the stage for Bash at the Beach in just a second, but Hogan has always been that political player. He's always had that creative control aspect to the point that he could veto. Have you ever played the game Monopoly Deal?
No.
Right. So Monopoly. You ever played Monopoly?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Cool.
So Monopoly Deal is a card game. It's like one of these collectible card game things, and you start with 5 cards, and it's the same format, but it's the first person to get 3 full sets wins. Now, the reason for saying that is there is a card in there called the Deal Breaker. Now, the Deal Breaker card is if someone has got a full set of properties, let's say they've got all the reds, right? And that's the biggest one. You could play that Deal Breaker card, and you can take that whole set and put it into your pile. So creative control. Yeah. There's also a card called the Just Say No. So if someone played, let's say I played a Deal Breaker to you, and you had a Just Say No card, you could play that card, and that blocks the play that I was trying to make. Now, both of these cards are creative control. Both of these cards are Hogan, and both of these cards is what Hogan played to his advantage in both the World Wrestling Federation and WCW. But more with WCW, if you're looking for a root cause as to why potentially that company started to fall down, there's 3 reasons. Vince Russo, Time Warner Discovery, Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And it's strange to think that coming out of Bash at the Beach, Hogan was the biggest heel in professional wrestling. Once again, Hogan was at the top of the mountain because up until this, he was failing in WCW.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting you make that point because obviously I've made no secret of what a huge Hulkamaniac I was growing up. Yeah, I was always very passionate about my my Hulkamaniac years, and even I obviously at that point in I would say probably 93, 94. Well, yeah, say about 93. After he left the WWE, I was obviously excited to see him come back on TV after being away for a while when he started WCW. For me, it never quite felt the same. And over a little bit of time, that's where you start that complacency. It's kind of like he's just repeating everything he pretty much did in WWE. It's getting stale. I'm losing interest, and I didn't foresee this happening. And for me, when it did, I just remember having to take a moment to like soak it all in because I was like, hold on a minute. Is this actually happening? Is this really, really happening? This is the biggest name in professional wrestling. He is probably then the biggest face in professional wrestling for, more than a decade. And like, what are we seeing here? But I was worried that this was going to be potentially the beginning of the end because I didn't really know Hogan as a heel. Obviously, as I've got older, I'd go back and watch his pre-Hulkamania days where he would be heel when he was managed by classy Freddie Blassie and see some of that. And obviously seeing him as Thunderlips in Rocky 3. I never really saw heel Hogan. And it was like, okay, so what now? And that was what shifted me to be like, right, I have to see Nitro. I have to see where they're going with this. Because I didn't, in my mind, it wasn't computing what was a potential, how Hogan was going to be seen. If he had come out in the, red and yellow still and just acting, like an idiot, like just as a heel, then I don't know if it would have worked. So that was the thing. It was like, okay, what now?
Let's park that. We're going to get to it after we do the heel turn. Some really good points there. I think just to kind of bring this back around, one of the things that I took away from the Hogan heel turn, and we will touch more on this in just a second, because let's be frank, that's what this show's going to be about, was why was he more convincing as a heel than he was as a face for 30 years? And we'll find out more about that in just a second. But as we lead into the summer of 1996, WCW was in a unique position, let's put it that way. It was challenging. It was competitive. It was Eric Bischoff, now fully in control, executive producer, vice president of WCW, had the ear of Ted Turner with wrestling. And they wanted to go after the dominance of the World Wrestling Federation. But as late as 1995, the promotion was struggling financially. They weren't in the green. They were in the red. And Bischoff has talked about that a lot, because from the days of Crockett, from Jim Herd, they never drew a profit. WCW wasn't successful. House shows, buy rates were terrible. Pay-per-view buy rates were in the toilet. TV ratings for 605 on TBS on Saturday night for main event were in the can. But he did one thing that changed all of that, and that was launching Nitro in September 95. For the first time ever, a company was challenging the flagship for the WWF Raw. And yes, at the beginning, it was 1 week Raw, 1 week Nitro, 1 week Raw, 1 week Nitro, 1 week Raw, 1 week Nitro. But the advantage, and I've talked about this, actually, I talked about this in the first ever episode of Legends, was the anniversary of Nitro, was it was live. It was unscripted. It was anything could happen. And anything did happen on May the 27th, 1996, on an episode of WCW Nitro in a match which I think Glacier was involved in. I can't remember exactly, where all of a sudden on commentary, Larry Zbyszko makes a reference to someone walking down the steps. And there he is, Scott Hall. Is it Scott Hall? Because he came out with the voice, with the toothpick, with the outfit. He came out as the bad guy, Razor Ramon.
Accent and all. Yeah. You people know who I You people know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. I love that because I loved the fact that he was still the mocking, and he was still in the Razor. It was confusing, when he did where is Billionaire Ted, and the thing when he did where he used to call Macho Man the Nacho Man. Yeah. Where is the Nacho Man?
Oh yeah.
I love that because it was kind of, I remember, and I still remember this because obviously we had it taped, and I remember going into school the next day, and a friend of mine, Robert, turned around and he said, "Have you seen anything of Nitro this morning?" No, not yet. Why? He went, I've heard something. He said, I'm going to watch it when I get back home after school. He said, we'll discuss it tomorrow. No problem. Went home, then they put Nitro on, sitting there. Okay, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, you see Scott Hall, and I'm thinking, holy cow, what? And I was thinking, what is going on here? And it was legitimately coming across like they were invading. And it was so well done because it's subtle, but not subtle. The fact that he's coming in, Dad said he's coming through the crowd and whatnot. So you're just thinking, okay, what is actually going on here? And, I love the fact that WCW did treat it as such, as like, we know who you are. What the hell are you doing here? Get out of here. You don't belong here. You're at the other place. You belong over there. And again, no one foresee it being what it would become.
You know what? It's funny, isn't it? Because you've just said there, no one foresaw it happening. No one would what the hell? Scott Hall's here. Then the following week or a couple of weeks later, it was, Kevin Nash turned up. Mm-hmm. I miss those days. I was just going to say,
it would never work now because of social media. It would and the internet would never work.
Even to a degree, the dirt sheets, right? Because yes, the Wrestling Observer newsletter was around in the 90s. I get it. But the internet wasn't, and social media wasn't. Yeah. And, that was when you legitimately got surprised about something. And, as a kid, you were sat there going, yeah, wow, geez, they've done it, really? But, now you look at it as a 40 as a year-old man, and you kind of go, well, actually, what was I thinking? Because they did the curtain call. You knew Hall and Nash were leaving WWE, right? It was obvious they were going to do that. It was obvious they were going to go to WCW because there was nobody else to go with. Yeah. And I think just like when you're a kid and the creativity flies and the imagination flies. And when we get to be adults, we become very, what's the word? Very cynical, right? And you take the fun away. And that's what it did, because you overanalyze it. But for the time, I remember watching WCW on TNT, after Monday Night Raw on a Friday at about midnight. So they would air Raw on Sky Sports at 10. And then you used to flip over, back in the analog days, flip over to channel 36, I think it was, or something like that. And there was TNT that only broadcast from 7 p.m. until 2 a.m. in the evenings, and WCW Nitro, a very abridged version of WCW Nitro. It wasn't 2 hours, it was an hour, right? But they kept all the highlights in. And I remember watching this, and I remember going, my God, what's going to happen? But do you know what the really annoying thing was, Stefan, about the UK fans? Do you know what the annoying thing was?
What?
They never gave us the pay-per-views.
No, that's very true. That was the really frustrating thing. It was literally just Nitro at that time, pretty much. And I was just going to say, when Hall arrived, obviously, as you've just alluded to, back then, there were dirt sheets, but we didn't have the internet and social media. And this is one of the things where I really feel for the younger generation of wrestling fans. They'll never, ever in their lifetime get to experience that kind of feeling, that kind of confusion, that kind of anticipation of, okay, what is going on? Where is this leading? Because as we know, we get told when wrestlers' contracts are coming up months in advance. We get told that it's most likely that a talent is going to go to a specific company when their contracts run out well in advance. We sometimes even know wrestlers are going to retire sometimes well in advance. There is no element of surprise. I mean, we talk about when, for example, Mariah May debuted on NXT. People were like, "Oh, I don't think some people expected that to be so soon," but we knew it was happening pretty much because we'd known for weeks and about a month or so in advance her contract was up in AEW. She wanted to go to WWE, things like that. There's, if this had happened back then and she just appeared on WWE television, everyone would have been like, "What? Oh, hold on a minute, she's like one of AEW's top female stars. Like, what is she doing in WWE? That's amazing." So, the younger generation, they'll never ever in their lifetime have that element of real surprise and shock value of something like that. Because you'll see it. And the thing is, as well, with the Hogan heel turn, there was no teasing. No one knew who that third man was. People may have had to guess it may have been Hogan, but no one was completely sold that Hogan was going to be their third man to join the Outsiders.
Let's get to it.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to it, because we're only a couple of months away from Bash at the Beach. Now, you bear in mind, this was obviously the era of quick storytelling. In WCW, they still didn't have monthly pay-per-views. They were still only 4 or 6 maximum in a year at this point. So in May, they debut. On June the 10th, not after that, at the Great American Bash in June, they powerbomb Eric Bischoff off a table because he refuses to tell them who the third man was, or who the 3-man team for WCW is. Now, in between this storyline is becoming so compelling, so legit, the WWE are considering legal action against WCW for trademark infringement. But it also shifted the gears, because this is where you got rid of the cartoon era of professional wrestling. This is where you got rid of characters like Doink the Clown. This is where you got rid of characters like Dink, Wink, Stink, and Pink. This is when you got rid of characters like, and I can't really say his name because of some legal actions going on, but a man who used to work for the bins. This is where you got rid of that. This is where you got rid of Mantar. This is where you got rid of, all of these jokey, big, jokey, comic guys that Vince thought was the future, appealing to this kids' audience. They were making it different. They were approaching this adult 18 to 35 demographic, which is what they needed. So we're at the Great American Bash. They powerbomb them. Then, and I didn't know this. I never knew this. This is why I love this show, right? Because you find things out that you didn't do. Did you know that there was a random drawing on Nitro to determine the three men who were going to face Hall and Nash at Bash of the Beach in the Hostile Takeover match?
Yes.
Damn it.
But I didn't know until obviously years later. It was only probably a handful of years ago that I knew that anyway. But I did know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if I knew it, I forgot it. Because I didn't know.
Which is understandable. It was a long time ago.
Yeah. It also led to record numbers for the WCW hotline.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
You know, $2.99 per minute to find out from Gene Okerlund. I love Gene Okerlund. Gene Okerlund was an absolute legend.
God rest him. Absolutely love Gene.
I mean, some of the things that Gene Okerlund would say on the pay-per-view to try and get people to call in, like speculating that the third man would be Bret the Hitman Hart, who was under contract with the World Wrestling Federation at the time. It was new. It was good. The WWF would never do it. But then it was that masterstroke.
Kind of remembers of the times when WWE used to do all the phone-ins and that, and people. There was this happened twice to WWE, and it's quite funny in hindsight. Do you remember when WWE in the 90s they used to have all like the phone-ins where people could phone in and ask questions to wrestlers and stuff like that, and they would always ask questions about wrestlers in WCW, and then you go forward into when TNA became a thing, and then everyone used to phone up like WWE, what was it, Wired or what? Live, I'll buy this.
Right there.
Yeah, and they used to phone up, and they used to phone up like that, and and they'd always be like, what do you think of so and so on TNA and all that, and they'll be like, yeah, look, whatever they're doing, it's great. And it was never a gracious answer. It was never no, they're doing well. They've got some popularity. Good luck to them. We wish them well. It was never anything gracious like that. The hosts were always very much like the voice of Vince McMahon, which was just like, yeah, please stop calling, and no, let's move on, and all that. And they would never address it humbly or anything like that. And
I remember Vince being on it.
Oh yeah, I remember on Live Wire with Jim Ross and that. There used to be a bit of a. It was a nightmare, wasn't it, when Jim Ross and Vince Russo used to do it?
Yeah, have you ever seen the? It's on YouTube. I can't play it on the show because obviously it's not adult. I'll send you the link. I can find it again. Have you ever seen the video where someone pranked called them on the Live Wire set?
Yes. Yeah.
This was going out live on national TV because it was like I was like, oh, we love that.
Well, as Vince says, we're live, pal.
Oh, you gotta love the 90s. Now, I want to talk about the formation now. Okay,
yes.
So we've kind of set the scene. We're here. We said we weren't going to talk about the card in detail. We are going to touch on it, but this is all about this formation of the NWO. There's two things I want to get to. First of all, was the match. All right, so it was Hall and Nash. It was Luger, Sting, and the Macho Man Randy Savage. Was there? Because if you look at WCW storytelling up until this point, there was always this draw that they did was convenient, that it was the three main eventers, all of which have got history with each other. Savage, Sting in the early parts of 1995 didn't really get on. Sting and Luger, best friends, tumultuous relationship. Savage and Luger couldn't stand each other when they first came in, and in 1995 were battling for the world title shot against Hulk Hogan. So it's not surprising you've got this triangle of potential suspects. Now, who out of those three did you at any point think it was one of those three? Because if you look at the lineup, 2/3 of that lineup had legit reasoning to go with the outsiders, and the 1/3 of it had legit reason to not go, but also to go. So I'm talking about Savage and Luger, the WWF connection, and I'm talking about the franchise player Sting, maybe turning his back on the fans in the crowd because they all supported the World Wrestling Federation. Would you have given it to any one of those three? And if you had, would it have worked?
Oh, I like this. Would it have worked? No, not to the impact that it did. I did the one individual that I sort of at the time sort of speculated could be the one I thought may have been Luger, because he had been heel before. I could kind of see it working. Sting, do you know what? Even though they teased it a few times during his career, I never saw Sting turning heel in WCW. I just didn't see it happening. For some reason, anytime I ever tried to contemplate Sting turning heel in WCW, there was always something there that just kept going. I think he's the guy that is just not going to happen. And I think it was the same if Hogan had remained in WWE for longer. I don't think his heel turn would have worked in WWE. At that time. I mean, it still would have been groundbreaking and monumental because when he left WWE, he was still the biggest name in WWE. It was only, his place and his stature that was kind of holding that next generation back from reaching the top. Shawn Michaels, your Bret Harts, for example. And that was what I thought was key, was once Hogan's out the door, it then creates that space for those guys to be elevated into that spot and actually make it their own. So for me, and I love Luger, for me, the only one I kind of thought, out of those ones was, I thought it could be Luger. I could see it being Luger, but I did think it was going to be someone out of that team, out of that trio.
Me too. Just to kind of put it in a nutshell. I didn't. Now looking back on it, it makes perfect sense why it was Hogan, right? But because we understand the business more and we understand the finances and we understand the buy rates. Yeah. But at that point, I didn't. I did think it was going to be Savage.
Yeah.
Because he had relationships with Hall and Nash in the WWF, right? He went up against Nash quite a few times. He went up against Hall, not to the level. So I was a bit surprised because the reason why I didn't think of Hogan, he had no interaction with Hall and Nash in the World Wrestling Federation.
No.
Hogan was gone by this point. So the link, I get the link, World Wrestling Federation to World Wrestling Federation. I get the link, but it was also a bit like, why? What? Why? How? When? Who? I mean, for the same logic of putting Hogan in, you could have put Hacksaw Jim Duggan in the group, right? It was... He worked for the world. You could have put Brian Knobbs or Jerry Sags as the group because they worked for the World Wrestling Federation. You could have put Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. You could have put the Nature Boy Ric Flair in the same angle because he worked for the World Wrestling Federation. That, to me, was the only link between Hogan and Hall and Nash.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, but I mean, I never would have pictured. See, my biggest concern with two concerns with this heel turn was, number one, we're not used to seeing Hogan as a heel. Can he make it work? Right? Can he make it believable enough and maintain it for a long period of time? Number two, you never see Hogan really aligning with people for very long. I mean, we have the Mega Powers. We've had his partnership with Brutus the Barber Beefcake in WWE. He's had these very brief alliances with like one other wrestler, but never more than one. And I thought, is that going to work? But credit to Hogan. I mean, he made it work. And this is what I think. Why I think with all of the publicity around him and the hatred towards him, the heat he gets now from a lot of fans because of reasons as we're all aware of. I think he should just go back to just appearing as Hollywood Hogan, because I've also noticed that as Hollywood Hogan, he seems more comfortable and believable in that role as a heel. I've noticed that appearances over the years where he's gone back to just being Hulk Hogan, this American icon and whatnot. It seems something doesn't sit right with it, and it's not just the booze, but he seems almost out of his comfort zone when he's trying to deliver, and it's kind of like face Hogan, the Immortal, is very much retro and very much 80s over the top, and sometimes he when he tries to be that Hulk Hogan, it can come across very cringy and it feels out of place, doesn't fit in today's world. But when he's Hollywood Hogan and he's a heel, it feels right, it fits, and I feel that's where I think he is best as Hollywood Hogan. And I think if he goes to another arena, if he comes back on WWE television and he's Hollywood Hogan and he's getting the booze, Hollywood Hogan can interact with that, and he can tell the fans, you can stick it, you were all fickle, and all this stuff. He's got more to work with. He can actually interact with that, and I think it works better. So, I just never would have thought it would have been Hogan.
Personally, I don't think you're ever going to see Hogan back on WWE TV again while this Real American Wrestling is kicking off, whatever they're going to call it, which I think is quite funny that they called it Raw. Anyway, one of the things that kind of, we're going to jump forward a bit now. One of the things that really kind of gave it away, though, and one of the things that criticized it was the commentary, especially the line by the legendary great Bobby Heenan, where he went, "Is he the third man?"
Mm.
And then there was one, and it was Sting, and he didn't look too good.
Hulkamania! Hulk Hogan is here!
Hulk Hogan's here!
Hulk Hogan is in the building!
You damn right he is!
Go get him, Hulkster!
Yeah, but whose side is he on?
What are you talking about?
Whose side is he on?
What are you talking about?
Yes, sir!
Get him, Hogan! Go get him, baby!
Come on and get some of this now.
Who's bad now, boys?
Hulk Hogan arrived. Hulk.
What is he doing?
My God!
Is he the third man?
He's the third man.
What the hell is going on here?
Hulk Hogan has betrayed WCW. He is the third man.
Look at
in this
this.
picture.
Oh my God!
What the hell is going on?
Oh my God!
Are you kidding me?
Probably the lowest shot ever given to professional wrestling. That man did right there, Hulk Hogan.
Let's get everybody out of the dressing room right now and kick his rear end.
Unbelievable, brother. You just
What have I
sold your
been
soul to
saying
the
all
devil.
these years? What have I been saying all these years?
Oh,
You humanoids
my
can-
God!
And he was walking down the ring. Right?
Yeah, the one time I thought Heenan had done a bit of a voodoo, and I wasn't happy with Heenan. And that's pretty good for all them years. Only one time was I ever mad at Heenan.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But you could, I think, though, it did get a lot of heat, that comment. But actually, if you are a legacy wrestling fan and you know the relationship between Bobby the Brain Heenan and Hulk Hogan, it's not out of place.
No.
Because Heenan, for years, again, in the World Wrestling Federation, said you don't trust Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan's not an honourable man.
He was the one. Yeah, he was the gas. He used to gaslight situations in the WWE regarding Hogan. It was always, a lot of it as well was, if you remember, Hogan's rivalry with Savage and the whole thing over Miss Elizabeth. He was the one that was stirring the pot on commentary, and that he was one just going, "Oh, have you seen the way he's looking at Elizabeth? Have you seen?" And he's, he wants Elizabeth for himself. He was the one who was always planting those seeds, and I thought he was very clever because we know what a paranoid persona Randy Savage was when it came to Elizabeth. He was a very paranoid individual with things like that. And, and it worked so well. And and when you do recollect all of these things, like you said, makes perfect sense.
But at the time on pay-per-view, you're like, what?
Yeah.
Really? No. But
because he does that, doesn't he? Whose side is he on? Whose side is he on?
Is he the third man? Yeah. And then I think when it brings it all back together again is when he does it, when Hogan does do it, Heenan goes, I told you. Heenan was at this point vindicated for 20 odd years of Hogan bashing. I thought, and to be honest, that's only recently after rewatching the pay-per-view again and kind of sitting back and going, right, I'm doing the show. I need to analyze it. I need to think about it a little bit more. You suddenly go, well, actually, no, this is very clever. Now, whether or not that was Eric Bischoff telling him to do that, or whether that was just the brain of the brain, Bobby Heenan.
I'm giving credit to Heenan because that's a smart thing Heenan would do. So I'm going to give him credit on that.
I think you have to, but we will never know. But it was just beautifully laid out and very subtle. You know, Dusty Rhodes, God bless Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, went a bit OTT. Shivani went massively OTT. Heenan went with it, but was very...
I'm not surprised. Like I've been telling you for years, you know, this is the real Hulk Hogan. Like this is the Hogan I was telling you. Then I'll tell you, one of the things that always stuck with me with this whole scenario was the interaction with Gene Okerlund's impromptu interview with them there and then while you're getting garbage. And as we know, you know, it become a time where throwing garbage into a ring on a live show was a big no-no. And this is happening. And it goes to show what the impact and the scale of what they had just witnessed. But for years, it was Hogan was synonymous with Gene Okerlund, with all the interviews. And, you know, let me tell you something, me and Gene, the relationship they had, you know, the support, you know, that Gene Okerlund had with Hogan. If I remember correctly, didn't Gene Okerlund once actually team with Hogan in a
he did.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. There was this great relationship between the two of them. And then I thought Gene Okerlund did an excellent job because he's reminding Hogan, you know, what are you doing? Are you sure you want to do this? Because he does this thing where everyone's throwing this garbage in the ring, and he actually says to him, this is what's in the future for you if you align yourself with this guy Hall, if you're going to associate yourself with this guy Hall, this guy Nash.
Hulk Hogan, excuse me. What in the world are you thinking?
Me, Gene, the first thing you need to do is to tell these people to shut up if you want to hear what I got to say.
I have been with you for so many years. For you to join up with the likes of these two men absolutely makes me sick to my stomach. And I think that these people here and a lot of other people around the world have had just about enough of this man, and you want to put yourself in this group? You've got to be kidding me.
Well, the first thing you got to realize, brother, is this right here is the future of wrestling. You can call this the new world order of wrestling, brother. These two men right here came from a great big organization up north, and everybody was wondering who the third man was. Well, who knows more about that organization than me, brother?
I've been there, I've done that. You have made the wrong decision, in my opinion.
Well, let me tell you something. I made that organization a monster. I made people rich up there. I made the people that ran that organization rich up there, brother. And when it all came to pass, the name Hulk Hogan, the man Hulk Hogan, got bigger than the whole organization, brother. And then billionaire Ted, amigo, he wanted to talk turkey with Hulk Hogan. Well, billionaire Ted promised me movies, brother. Billionaire Ted promised me millions of dollars. And billionaire Ted promised me world caliber matches. And as far as billionaire Ted goes, Eric Bischoff and the whole WCW goes, I'm bored, brother. That's why these two guys here the so-called outsiders. These are the men I want as my friends. They're the new blood of professional wrestling, brother. And not only are we gonna take over the whole wrestling business with Hulk Hogan and the new blood, the monsters with me, we will destroy everything in our path, Mean Gene.
Look at all of this crap in this ring. This is what's in the future for you if you want to hang around the likes of this man Hall and this man Nash.
As far as I'm concerned, all of this crap in the ring represents these fans out here. For 2 years, brother, for 2 years, I held my head high. I did everything for the charities. I did everything for the kids. And the reception I got when I came out here, you fans can stick it, brother. Because if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, you people wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff would be still selling meat from a truck in Minneapolis. And if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, all these Johnny-come-latelys that you see out here, wrestling wouldn't be here. I was selling out the world, brother, while they were bumming gas to put in their car to get to high school. So the way it is now, brother, with Hulk Hogan and the New World Organization of Wrestling, brother, me and the new blood by my side, what you gonna do when the New World Organization runs wild on you? What you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Don't touch me, I'll get a fleet of lawyers. Tony, Bobby, Dusty, damn it, let's get back to you.
All right, we have seen the end of Hulkamania.
And Hogan's delivery on the fact that where he was like, this, as far as I'm concerned, this garbage in a ring represents these fans. And I'm thinking, he's got a nuclear on the... And I do wonder if at any point, did Hogan have any kind of resentment for the fact towards wrestling fans that they may have been turning on him because they were getting bored with the real American Hulk Hogan, because they were getting stale. I know I was, but did he see that himself and go, yeah, actually, this heel turn, I think, is exactly what I need and what maybe the business needs. And I'm going to channel some personal feelings here and I'm going to use it to fuel my new alter ego, my new persona.
We're not going to know that unless we talk to Hogan. And I'd love, as much as Hogan, it would be a very difficult conversation to have with Hulkster because
I asked him.
He would be blowing up.
I asked him in 2015, and he turned around and said, point blank, all I'm going to say is when you put all the correct ingredients in the mix, and that he said sometimes it just tastes too sweet.
That was about being a politician. But you might be right. It might be resentment. I don't think Hogan. Let's be honest. The Hogan of the yesterday, Hogan of the 80s, 90s is not what always it is the Hogan of today, but we didn't see it. But now we're seeing it. I would kind of say I don't think Hogan's got that much emotional intelligence to link it to that. I think it's all about money.
Yeah.
And
100%.
you know what I mean? But you would like to think that we played some sort of part in that promo.
Yeah. But it's interesting you said the money thing, because he does in his promo here at this heel turn, he does actually talk about being driven by money, where he says, billionaire Ted, all of a sudden he wants to talk turkey with Hulk Hogan. He promises the movies and, high caliber matches. And he turns around and says, I'm bored, brother. And that was it. He was saying, I'm bored. And this is what I mean. Maybe Hogan, and as you rightly say, maybe he'll probably never admit it, and maybe we'll never know the truth because forever the politician, he'll probably keep his cards close to his chest.
To be honest, I doubt he knows anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's got to be this element. There's got to be this element with him that maybe, just maybe, I'm not saying it's the truth, and like we said, we'll probably never know, that maybe not only the fans were getting bored, maybe Hogan was getting bored of like, I'm tired of doing the same gimmick for the past 15 plus years, and that I want to do something different. And I think it actually aligning with Hall and Nash, I think is exactly the support network to help influence and develop that heel character into Hollywood Hogan. Because if it had been Hogan on his own that had just turned heel and he was on his own and he had just become Hollywood Hogan on his own without that support with him, I don't think it works. It doesn't land. So,
Agreed.
Yeah, it's having the but what he said to me does kind of fit well when you have the right ingredients. You know, it tastes too.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong though. I mean, we've seen that for years in professional wrestling. But we're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna get it to the end. We're gonna talk about a few other things. The NWO, as we said, formed at Bash at the Beach. I mean, they could have just called this the New World Order pay-per-view. I mean, this is what it was, wasn't it? It was like filler at the beginning and everything. Like you said at the top, all we talk about really on this pay-per-view isn't Conan versus Ric Flair. It's not Psychosis versus Rey Mysterio, which was a crappy
Guerrero versus Steven Regal.
Or, Harlem Heat defending the World Tag Team titles. It was this match. But the NWO was based and inspired on those invasion angles by New Japan.
Yeah.
And
I think it's worth mentioning. It was a stacked, I mean, all right, it was filler, but it was a large card. It was like, 13, 14 matches?
13, 14 matches. I mean,
which was big.
You had, very quickly running through the card, you had the US title on the line. The Nature Boy, Ric Flair, joined by Liz and Woman, defeating Conan to capture the title. You had Dean Malenko defending the Cruiserweight Championship against the Disco Inferno. You had John Tenta, the formerly known as Earthquake, defeating Big Bubba in a Carson City Silver Dollar match.
Formerly known as Big Boss Man.
Yep. Then you had a Lord of the Ring take fist match that was DDP defeating Jim Duggan to retain the ring. Just think of like the joke, the Casino Royale ring in AEW. Yeah. You had a double dog collar chain tag team match, which was the Nasty Boys against the Public Enemy in a hardcore match. You had Mongo McMichael going up against Joe Gomez, and you had Sullivan and the Giant defeating the Horseman, which was Arn Anderson and Chris Benoit. So it was a stacked card of either legends or future legends in this ring. But, excuse me, I think I've got hay fever coming. It was the immediate aftermath of Bash at the Beach. That was the big one. All right. It's hands down, and it's been said by critics and journalists like Mr. Meltzer, the most important WCW pay-per-view and arguably the most important pay-per-view in WCW history. The heel turn, the NWO overshadowed everything on this. And it was also intriguing because it was only a few weeks. It was 2 weeks. The heel turn after Stone Cold Steve Austin delivered the Austin 316 promo in the World Wrestling Federation. So not only were the World Wrestling Federation beginning this journey into the Attitude Era, but WCW was also saying, hell to this, we need to do it.
Yeah. I mean, you said it was, it was pivotal and it was game changing for WCW. Let's not be around the bush. It was game changing for the entire industry, the landscape of the entire industry. We obviously we do play devil's advocate. We do. You say, like you said earlier on in the show, what if WCW put WWE out of business and things like that? What if this had never happened? What if the NWO never existed? Would we have had the Attitude Era? Would we have had D-Generation X? Apart from the Four Horsemen, factions were never really a big thing. I know, you look at what happened in WWE the following year in '97. It was faction filled. Disciples of Apocalypse, Los Boricuas, the Truth Commission. There was Nation of Domination. D-Generation X was born. It kind of it did change the landscape. And if you look as well, without those factions, how many top stars wouldn't have been given that chance? We talk about The Rock, as we have talked about in which we will, we've got further parts of our Rock series coming up over the course of the next year or so. But we talk about where would Rocky Maivia have been placed if Nation of Domination hadn't existed? How would he have got that big change that he needed? And this is why I talk about the influence of Hall and Nash being that support to Hogan to allow this new heel turn to work. The Rock's heel turn from Rocky Maivia to The Rock may not have worked without the support and having the rest of the nation around him. Sometimes you've got to draw from the people around you. So for me, this is quite possibly the biggest moment in wrestling history when it comes to, like more of what the wrestling that we grew to know and love.
What's bigger?
That we grew up with.
What's bigger? And we're just going to talk about finance buy rates in a second, and we're going to wrap up. But what's bigger? Vince McMahon's promo on Raw, the simulcast at the ending of Nitro, and I bought my competition, or the formation of the NWO?
Formation of the NWO, 100%. It was more impactful. In hindsight, I mean, don't get me wrong, the whole Vince acquiring WCW moment was groundbreaking. Don't get me wrong. It was the end of an era for WCW. I think what waters down the impact of Vince buying WCW for me was how those couple of years after when the invasion angle came up, the fact that it lacked real star power because a lot of the top WCW guys weren't available or weren't interested in jumping ship over to WWE at the end of WCW. If it had been that, and we had have seen all these massive top stars like Sting, Steiner. I mean, Steiner didn't come until a bit later on. Scott Steiner, Booker T immediately. He came in, but this is why we had to have Austin, Kurt Angle, and that jump ship to the Alliance, as it was called, the WCW ECW thing, because they needed to give it star power. Vince knew it lacked.
I really feel like pulling an audible and changing the show for next week. I'm so tempted.
Why is that? Go on.
How about, we were going to be doing the Legacy of Sabu, but I think there's so much here and we're touching on stuff.
Yeah.
What about we did Invasion?
Yeah. I'm up for that. Yeah. I think that's a good follow-up.
Audible next week. We're not doing the Legacy of Sabu. I've got to go and redo all the research again. I've got the research. That's fine. I can do Sabu another time. We are going to look at Invasion, not just the pay-per-view. We're going to look at the angle of the invasion as well and what actually happened. But let's get back to this. We're going to begin to wrap this up now. This journey of Bash at the Beach, or as we should say, Bash of the NWO, because the impact, as you said, Stefan, was monumental across the entire industry, and it was monumental for WCW. Bash at the Beach 1996 scored a 0.7 buy rate, a massive improvement over previous events like Starrcade 1995 that scored 0.3. Now, to show you how big this was, Starrcade of 1996 drew 0.95 buy rate, almost 3 times as much as Starrcade 1995. It then went even higher. Starrcade 1997, built around the Hollywood Hogan Sting feud, was the highest grossing pay-per-view of all time for WCW with 700,000 buys. It also was the catalyst for this 83 weeks. Everybody wanted to know what was going to happen on Nitro each and every week, especially the night after.
Yeah. I like, we've discussed about, these new Vault channels that WWE have on YouTube. They have WCW Vault, they have WWE Vault. And now what I do like that they've put together, which we didn't have on the network and things anyway, someone's been quite clever and actually made videos which can be over an hour long, where they actually piece every segment and highlights of every match, of every sort of story, feud and things like that, So it tells the whole story in a more compressed thing. I actually watched last weekend. I watched the birth of the Wolfpack, the NWA Wolfpack, and and you had the whole stuff between the whole rivalry between Nash and Hogan until leading up to that, what's known as the finger poker. Do you know what? I'm still mad at them for that. That was, for me, the worst thing they ever did, because to me that was
the worst thing they ever did was put the title on David Arquette.
No, I mean the guys Hogan, Nash, and all that lot. I'm not talking about the company. I think that was the worst thing they ever done, because to me that was mocking the professional wrestling and that. I get why they did it. It brought massive heat on them. I get why they did it. I didn't agree with it. It was very similar to an episode of Raw, wasn't it? When that was it. When Sean Hack was Commissioner Sergeant Slaughter forced Triple H to defend the European title against Triple H. They were both in DX, and they did the same thing where he sort of did the finger poke. Sean lays down, and then Triple H does all that. He just runs the ropes and skips over him numerous times before stopping and then pinning him to win it. I don't like that, even if it's the wrestlers just having fun, and I don't like that. For me, I find it mocking the sport and the art of professional wrestling. I don't care why you do it. I don't agree with it, but yeah, go over to if you want to see. They've got almost everything. If you want to look at rivalries, anything like that, all in just one place, scaled down into like an hour and a half. Go and check them out, the WCW Vault or the WWE Vault, because I actually quite like that they've done that. It's just putting it all in one place. So yeah,
check out the ad breaks.
Yeah, it's just a shame about the ad breaks, unless you've got YouTube Premium.
Well, we're not.
No.
Right, let's begin to wrap this up, because as we've talked about, Bash at the Beach was the most important wrestling event for WCW of the modern era. It was also one of the most pivotal moments, from that groundbreaking heel turn of Hulk Hogan to that groundbreaking formation of the NWO, which really changed the culture of a wrestling organization. It changed a culture of professional wrestling to a point that the industry, I don't think, has ever gone back to what it was pre-NWO. Yes, we've got the PG era. Yes, we've got X, Y, and Z. But there is always going to be this hangover of Bash at the Beach, of the NWO, of Hogan's heel turn, of Hall and Nash. It's been emulated. It's been never replicated as well as what they did. We've talked about that before. The 2002 episode of No Way Out, where McMahon brought the NWO back. It was watered down. I mean, there's more we can talk about on the NWO, and we will do at some point. But for now, Bash at the Beach, for a throwaway pay-per-view, which shouldn't have been in the top 10 of all-time greatest events, is up there. Not just for the match card, because actually I said to you off air yesterday, I've forgotten how bad some of the matches were in here.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
because of that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I don't know how a lot of the talent feel or felt about that were on that card. That the pay-per-view is only remembered for one thing. But it is what it is with that. And Bash at the Beach is a very strange pay-per-view to have such a monumentous moment. It is, without a doubt, it is. You've got the biggest star or the biggest name in professional wrestling, and the unthinkable happened. And I just think if you're going to credit WCW, you're going to credit, and you have to credit Hogan to an extent, because he had to make it work. Credit Hall and Nash, because they really did. For all the stick that WCW gets and all the mismanagement WCW gets, sometimes they just had some masterstroke genius moments, and that was probably the cream of the crop of genius moments. Maybe it shouldn't have worked, but it did, and it forced Vince to ditch this ideology of, everyone wants these larger than life cartoon characters, as you said, like, your Doinks and your bin men and your hockey players and all these, and if anything, you have to thank them because we got an era. I mean, the Attitude Era is still very much loved. It was silly, but it was fun. It was extremely dramatic. And I feel that without this moment, we never would have got that. So you have to credit them and you have to thank them for changing the landscape for the better.
Totally.
Because, we talk about Hulkamania and Hogan going stale. The WWE was going very, very stale at that point.
Oh, yeah.
It just didn't, and it was the shock that Vince needed, and absolutely wonderful. And this moment will still be talked about long after we're all gone.
Let's put it frank. It was the kick up the arse that Vince McMahon and the World Wrestling Federation needed. Took a while, but we got there. That, ladies and gentlemen, was Bash at the Beach 1996, the formation of the NWO, the creation of a dynasty, the creation of an evolution. And I can't work out how many more stables I can get into that little ending bit there, but I tried. Next week on the show, as we just said, we're calling an audible. We're going to be looking at Invasion. I'm not sure if I'm looking forward to that or not, to be honest, but we're going to be talking about the Invasion angle. We're going to be talking about what happened. We'll be picking it up from the end of Raw and Nitro on that simulcast. I think we'll talk briefly about that, and then we will talk about Invasion and the pay-per-view itself. Don't forget, if you want to watch the pay-per-view ahead of us talking about it, you can do internationally on Netflix. Just go to the new revamped Netflix. I can't find a thing. It's difficult. But all the WWE PLEs are on Netflix. And yes, we will see you next week for more of Legends and Champions, talking all about Invasion. But
this podcast was not paid for by the New World Order.
If only we could go out with the music, but we can't.
If only, I know.
Stefan, what are you going to be listening to on Saturday?
I am going to be listening. Oh my God, I love it. I'm going to be listening to our two favorite Greek brethren, Mitch and Dimitri, with the alternate commentary table podcast. Do you know what? Honestly, I do a lot of my podcast listening of an evening when sometimes when I lay in bed, it's my downtime. I chill, I relax, I stick on the latest release in that, and I end up in bed. 9 times out of 10, I'm laughing I'm just laying in bed laughing my head off because honestly, Mitch and Dimitri, I love those guys so much. The joy, the fun that these two guys bring to the table, pun intended. Is brilliant. And then I love, this is what I love about being a part of Celebrate Wrestling is you get a bit of everything. You get the banter you and I have, and, we bring our across the pond flavour to Celebrate Wrestling. You've got Mitch and Dimitri bringing the crazy fun stuff and the hilarity with alternate commentary table. And then on Sunday, you get just an absolutely wonderfully constructed podcast breaking down everything that's been going on, all the latest news with Mike McGuire, El Capitan, with Dave Meltzer, and sometimes Joe Aguinaldo. And honestly, I just love what we're doing across the board. What's not to love? You get a little bit of everything. And Saturday I will be listening to Mitch and Dimitri, and Sunday I'll be listening to Mike and hopefully returning Dave Meltzer. So that's my weekend sorted. And then obviously next Wednesday I'm going to be listening to my irritating voice and Mr. Evans here. So
you don't listen back to the
check
show.
them out. Of course I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't do that now.
Do you not do that?
Well, for me, bear in mind, because I have to record them, then I have to edit them.
Yeah.
So I basically listen back to them again.
Well, there you go then. So,
but
I listen to them once they're uploaded.
I do remember once when I edited the show and I saved it to my phone and I listened to it 4 times because I kept finding things that were wrong with it, and I had to go back and do the re-edit again and the re-edit. And okay, so I apologize. I try new things on the edit every time. So like when we did the Heroes of Wrestling one, I interspersed bits of the clip of the pay-per-view into the conversations.
Yeah.
So it would be cut off. We would be talking and then we would stop it, play this bit, and then come back to the conversation again to kind of bring it, make it a bit more real.
You used to do similar things with Squared Circle, didn't you? Because back in the day, you used to put in the clip, the soundbite of certain things, of what the topic was. Yeah, I used to like that. Yeah.
It takes a hell of a lot of time to edit this show, but it's worth it. Right. Absolutely. That's it for us. We'll be back next week with more of Legends and Champions, your weekly dose of old school wrestling. We're going to open the time vault. We're going to go back in time in the DeLorean. Oh, Brian Connolly's doing Back to the Future live music.
I know. I read it. Yeah, he's going to be playing Doc Brown.
Yeah. I so want to go.
I do as well. We'll have to sort something out. We'll have to have a little trip to London. We'll have to meet up in London and go.
Although, do you know what? This has mean nothing to the Canadian listeners, but please search for it. You know Einstein?
Yes.
I want it to be a puppet. Go, it's a puppet!
It's a puppet!
Just Google Brian Connolly and Larry the Loafer. And
Brian Connolly, Larry the Loafer, yeah.
That's it for us. We'll be back next week with more Legends and Champions. Until then, stay safe. See you at the matches. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
This has been Legends and Champions with Andy Evans. Thank you for listening.
The alternate commentary table, ACT, brought to you by the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed. Listen, it's Mitch, it's Dimitri. We got this little pod thing that we do every single week where we talk about the week in wrestling and the way in which we do it from the other side of the railing, right, Mitch?
I like that.
We're coming at it because we love it, we hate it. The alternate commentary table, ACT. Download it anywhere where you're getting your podcasts.
Sure.